Good morning, genealogy friends. I'm sorry I'm late this morning. We had to move some things around with one of my kids' therapists because of the holidays, and so she was here, and she just took a little bit longer than I thought she was going to wrap up, which was fine. But I didn't want to rush her out. Like, I have friends who are waiting to hear all about family history because I have terribly important family history things to share, so... Anyway, I figured I would just push this back a little, not make her feel awkward. I hope that if you celebrated, that you had a lovely holiday. And if you weren't celebrating Christmas, I hope you had a nice weekend anyway. Happy Monday. Update on the schedule this week. So I am not teaching for the full week again because of the holiday. Fun fact, New Year's Eve is actually my favorite holiday. So I am taking the whole New Year's Eve and New Year's Day off again to be with my family. However, I actually am going to be teaching tomorrow. Like I said, because of the holidays, my kids' stuff got moved around, which means that I am available to teach tomorrow. So you will get me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll take another break. Anyway, let me flip this around. Good morning. So, trying to think about updates. I'm still not releasing any new pages until January. I'll give you updates on what's going on with the book, but we'll talk about that in January. December, the end of December is for wrapping things up and getting everything under control. Plus, I feel like the time between Christmas and New Year's just feels like one big holiday to me, and sometimes I feel like, I don't know, people are just busy. I don't think there's any other business going on. I'm doing some updates to the site, but we'll talk about those soon. I know I have some people waiting to come into the group. If you're still waiting, it's because either you didn't answer the questions that you're supposed to answer, which you can go back and answer. There's a couple of you also that it's hard with Facebook accounts. If somebody tries to join the group, but they aren't in any other groups, or they have absolutely no friends, or they just joined Facebook 2 weeks ago, I always get nervous. So if you're waiting, you might just be waiting to be vetted. Okay, so let's talk about what we're talking about today. I am going to be talking about making a digital will. I do not want you guys to think of this as a depressing topic or something that you don't want to deal with because it's such a bummer. Making a digital will is important because so many of our assets are now digital, and people don't think about that. And it's one thing to, not really make a plan. And then if you pass away, your house is full of boxes or photos on the wall, or, there's physical property. There's a house, a car, things like that you leave behind that you understand that the people that you leave behind will deal with. Digital stuff is actually... When it comes to people passing away, digital stuff is much more in danger of just vaporizing, because if people don't have access to it, then they won't be able to save it. And some of your digital stuff, if people don't know about it, then they don't even know to look for it. And we've talked about saving social media before, because I feel like that's part of it. But there are a lot of other digital assets that you need to think about. And making a digital will part of your estate planning is just it's just a good idea. So we are going to be talking about it as it relates to family history and genealogy, because that's what we're talking about. But this is something that, as you're thinking about making a digital will, just make sure that all of your bases are covered, not just the family history stuff. I also have to get on here. This is kind of a funny topic. I do have to say that because this is because this subject matter could be considered legal advice, I have to say I have a law degree. I passed the bar in the state of Ohio, so technically I am an attorney. I am not a practicing attorney, and what I am about to say should not be construed as legal advice from me to you. I am not, hi, also I have a cat. I am not giving you legal advice. We are just talking about stuff. If you need legal advice with your estate planning or in making a digital will, then you need to contact an attorney. So I have to say that legally. because having a law degree actually just kind of made my life more complicated in lots of different ways, although it is very helpful in other ways. Okay, so the thing about digital items, there's a lot of digital items that you own. Even if you don't think of yourself as being very tech savvy, it is impossible at this point to not have anything digital that's sort of your property. And some of these properties, you have, shared properties, like your Facebook account that you're using to watch me right now. That's a shared property. It's yours. You have a login and you have a password, but your Facebook account also belongs to Facebook, and that's why they can censor it or delete it or do what they need to protect their platform. So that's a social media thing. But you also might have, sorry, my cat's climbing my bookshelf. You also might have books. Sorry, I'm completely distracted right now. Do you have cat owners? Do you guys have cats that do this? An entire house, and she needs to be right there by all my fragile stuff. You might have books that you've purchased that are only digital. You could have things that you've written. You can have blogs or journals that are only digital. You have an email account, most likely. And so you have emails that we've talked about. If you want to have your emails be in your family history archives, it's a good idea to print them out or save PDFs. But your email account is actually making sure somebody has access to your email account is often the key to make sure that they have access to a lot of other things. If, people need to access things like your Facebook account, your email account is often the thing that they need to be able to get your passwords and stuff like that. You might have Google accounts, so like Google Drive, which is what I use right now, because I actually use Google Drive and Dropbox to save files, but I rely on Google Drive more. So right now my notebook's back up to Google Drive. I have a number of other PDF things that are saved in Google Drive so that I can access them anywhere. Google Drive is what I use to save documents. And then, of course, Google Photos. I have tons and tons. Every photo that I own that's digital is on Google Photos. So that includes all of my scans, but it also includes all of the photos that I've taken since I've had a digital camera. And my photos are uploaded automatically. So all of the photos I took over Christmas on my phone are now in Google Photos. Having access to Google Photos is important. You know what? You are driving me crazy. Oh, this is a Monday of just being interrupted by random people who don't understand the importance of Genealogy Facebook Lives. So for Genealogy, you also have accounts that are genealogy specific, probably. I have an ancestry.com account. I have a large family tree on there. But I also have, notes that nobody else can see. And I have messages back and forth in my Ancestry account that are sort of part of that greater genealogical pile. And I have made a point to take screenshots or print out the messages that I think are really important, just to make sure that somebody does have access or have record of them later. But if something was to happen to me, the work that I've done on Ancestry.com, I wouldn't want it to just go away because I went away. So, and then you also, if you have, some of you might keep family websites where you actually share your family history or you share your photos on things that you've set up. If you're the person that's in charge of that, or if you're the person that's paying for hosting, then that's something that you want to create a plan for, because it would be sad if your family was relying on these things to continue and to comfort them, and then because you stopped paying for hosting, they went away. And, for most sites, when hosting expires, if it truly expires, they will just dump the site, and you can't really blame them for it. It's a business thing, and they can't personally review everything. But that's a very sad thing that's happened to a lot of, not just family websites, but random websites. You also could have, this is the last thing that I'm probably going to mention, and it might not apply to a lot of you, but if you have any kind of digital business or finances, obviously most of my business is digital. I have a website, I have an Etsy shop, the products that I sell are digital. I have email conversations back and forth. I have, orders that I can reference. So if something were to happen to me and there wasn't a plan, those of you who have purchased things from me wouldn't have any customer service if I had no plan. If you lost your downloads, if you had a problem with your downloads, and I wasn't here anymore, there would need to be somebody to help you. Also, if something were to happen to me, there isn't any reason that somebody else couldn't run my business so that people still had access to the pages. And so that continued to support my family. But that would mean somebody would need to pay for the hosting. They need to understand how to help customers. They would need to be able to access my, a lot of you pay me through PayPal, and that's a digital asset that people don't think about. But, PayPal is a bank account, but it's online. It's not like I can't walk over to the PayPal bank and withdraw my money. I need to be able to manage that digitally. So it's kind of funny. I don't think any of you have ever actually had an interaction with him, but my husband's a big part of my business. And part of that is because it just doesn't make any sense for it to be completely on me. If something were to happen, even if I was incapacitated for a little while, I need to make sure that somebody else can handle customer service requests and things like that. So if you were in that position, if you have any money in things like PayPal or Venmo, that's part of your digital assets. And it's just, again, you don't want to not plan for this stuff. Planning for this stuff isn't morbid, it's practical. Sometimes planning for this stuff makes you realize that you have loose ends, but then, it's also just, it's just smart, guys. It's just smart. So, like I mentioned, you want to make sure that your email account, that at least somebody has access to it. That is the absolute bare minimum, lowest threshold, making sure that somebody always has your password for your email account, which can be rough because obviously you want to make sure that you can trust that person. If you do nothing else, though, that is what you need to do. But if you're going to put together a digital will, which I really think that you should, let's talk about the different things that you would do. Because the other thing is that making a digital will doesn't have to be hard. If you need legal assistance, you should talk to an attorney, but making a digital will is something that you can do on your own if you feel capable and comfortable to do that. It's hard because I was going to say I've done it myself, but that's cheating because I have a law degree, but just think of a digital will as a plan, and maybe that will make you feel more comfortable. And you can put a digital will together, and maybe in putting it together, you can realize, oh, maybe I do need help from an attorney, or maybe I haven't done any estate planning, in which case, yeah, you should talk to an attorney at least once. But yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. The first thing that you want to do, it's actually really similar to making any other kind of will. You want to make a digital executor. Now, your digital executor doesn't have to be the same person that's the executor for your will. That could be handy, but obviously that person has a lot going on. Maybe the person that's the executor for your will isn't somebody who's really comfortable with digital stuff. Maybe they aren't a computer savvy or computer comfortable person, in which case pick another digital executor and just make sure that you at least have the conversation with them that they are your digital executor and that they will be receiving instructions if something happened to you, and make sure that they're comfortable with that. I can't imagine that they wouldn't be. So you pick somebody that's your digital executor, and then you really you're making a list of digital assets, all the things that we just talked about, with your logins and your passwords and or PIN numbers. And that, again, that could be as simple as your email address and a couple of social media accounts, or it could be complicated if you've got businesses. We have a family list where we have everything all the way down to, we have logins for things like our insurance and our electric bill. We pay everything digitally. All of those things have logins and passwords. We keep that all in one place because, again, if something happens to one of us, the other person needs to be able to pay the insurance and the electric bill. So, you could be really thorough. You might have more logins and passwords than you think you do. I will say, just as a reminder, you don't want your login and password to be the same for every site that you have. So if it is, that could be something that you might want to think about, change, and then write down the new passwords. Just because then if one of your account is compromised, you wouldn't want all of your digital assets to be compromised. Once you have your list, then you want to have instructions for how digital assets are going to be handled. That might mean that you have accounts that you want shut down. Your email account, for example, maybe you just want somebody to have access to it for passwords, but maybe you want to put in instructions saying that you don't want them to go through your email and read all your old emails. Maybe you do. Maybe you have sensitive stuff that you want deleted. For your Google Photos or something like that, maybe you want to have somebody else added so they have access to all of your Google Photos. Now, Google, here's an interesting thing. It's not just about the instructions that you leave behind. A lot of sites do have their own rules. Google has something that you can set, now before anything happens to you, and it's called an inactive account manager. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It gives somebody the power to access certain things and be able to do certain things with your accounts, but it also notifies Google that you are no longer alive. And it actually makes things more secure, but it does shut down some functionality for Google things. So if you're interested in that, you can look into setting an inactive account manager. I mean, it's very smart. A huge part of my life is actually run on Google accounts. So that was something that was important for me to set. For social media, I've talked about on Facebook, you can set a legacy contact, and that person has access to your account, but in a limited way. Excuse me. And it also notifies Facebook that you've passed away. So somebody can post from your Facebook profile, but it says, it's not like from you. It's not like you pass away and then set up and then you'd be posting, because that would confuse and maybe alarm people. It sets this person up as somebody who's allowed to post on your behalf, but it will also memorialize your Facebook account so that you can't get hacked and people can't post weird stuff. And so, it does other things, like everything that you have public when your account is memorialized stays public and stays up there forever. It's kind of like you have this Facebook shrine, but everything that you have set to private stays private and cannot be accessed by anybody, including your legacy contact. So your Facebook messages and things like that, they don't have access to any of that because, from Facebook's point of view, this person's passed away and that stuff they wanted it to be private. So we're going to keep it private for them, which basically just means that it goes away. So if you did have Facebook messages or something that you wanted somebody to be able to access at that point, you would want them to have your password and your login information, not necessarily just have them be set as a legacy contact. But it is smart to set somebody as a legacy contact, because if you don't, and somebody else notifies Facebook that you've passed away, which can completely happen. There was a time where they've stopped doing it, but Facebook used to suggest that you get back in contact with people after you haven't talked to them for a while. And for the whole first 2 years after my grandfather passed away, Facebook would occasionally tell me that he and I hadn't talked in a little while, and didn't I miss him, which was, kind of awful, which is why they got rid of it. But if somebody had responded to that by saying, oh, this person passed away and nobody was set as a legacy contact, Facebook then freezes that account. And there was a time where sometimes they froze it and sometimes they deleted it. So it's smart to have legacy contacts. For other sites like ancestry.com, people can request to take over your account if you pass away. And they don't necessarily need to have your login information. But again, that's subject to approval, and it doesn't always mean that they have access to everything like messages. So it's smart to, it's just smart to get this stuff taken care of. Again, you're not asking for trouble by setting up a digital will. You're just making a plan. And, the other thing, as far as genealogy and family history, if you have purchased my digital pages, which, by the way, that would be considered a digital property that theoretically you could hand down, even though you are not supposed to. I will say this. I feel like this is part of the information that you get when you get my package. And I also feel like, or my digital pages, and I feel like this is kind of understood, but you're not supposed to share the digital pages right now. Like, if you love my digital pages, you're not supposed to send them to your sister. You're supposed to tell your sister where she can buy them, and then she's supposed to buy them from me. People have run into trouble with this with my shop, because I have gotten customer service requests from people who didn't buy the pages and who need help with them. And they've told me, oh, my sister, my neighbor, this woman at my church group sent your pages to everybody at our church, and I don't know how to use them. And that's it just stinks, because then I have to put on my lawyer hat and deal with that, because it's kind of a sort of theft. However, if you were to pass away, you will own things like digital PDFs that you've bought from people that you might want to make a plan for. But especially if you've taken my pages and you built a digital notebook. If it's only on your iPad, only on your computer, and something happens to you, then, you run the risk that your work isn't going to be shared with anybody else. That is why I always recommend, if you can, print off the pages as you go. You don't have to print the whole book once you're finished with it. Finish a page and print it and put it somewhere. Even if you're thinking that you're going to have it professionally bound later, just get a physical hard copy somewhere. When you take nice photos with your phone, maybe make a photo book. This is a good time of year to make photo books because you could make one. 2020 has been such a weird year, but I like to make photo books that are just the best photos of the past year around this time of year, because I know what the photos are from this year, but my kids don't have access to my phone or Google Photos all the time. And so if I want them to grow up with photo albums that they're in, I need to print off photos or photo books for them. If you have emails that are important that you wanted them to be saved, print them. If you have social media posts that you want to be saved, comments or something that somebody else shared, screenshot, print them. Make it easy for the people that follow you to follow your work, to see the things that you wanted saved for your story. The easiest way to not lose things because they were digital and they vaporized is to not have them only be digital. Print and share and scan those photos, and then if you can, pass them out. Pass out the originals, send the originals to people, or scan the photos and make photo books of old family photos with notations about who the people are, and pass those photo books out. Photograph your heirlooms and then pass the heirlooms on, pass your jewelry on, it's that whole you can't take it with you thing. So if you really want to make sure that the stories and the stuff survive you in your family, don't wait to share them after you're gone. That is my other biggest piece of advice. So anyway, I hope I did not bum you out talking about making a digital will. I know some people really do not like the idea of estate planning, but it's just smart. It's just smart to have a plan. So hopefully that all made sense. And even though it's Monday, I will see you tomorrow because I'm teaching on Tuesday. So yeah, I'll see you in the morning, probably on time, even though we're having a weird week. I should see you at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Mountain Standard Time, and we'll talk about something less deathy, probably. All right, thanks for being here, guys.